Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at two books that a subscriber is thinking about picking up and adding to his collection. And the question is, which of these books may be a better buy? Stay tuned. In this video, we're going to take some time to break down two books that someone has asked me to examine to help them to figure out which book they actually go after. And I can tell you for a fact, this is an easy decision, at least in my mind, and we'll see whether it's an easy decision ultimately for the person that asked me to do this video for them. But the very first book that we are going to look at is on screen right now. It is DC Comics Presents issue number 26. And this is an awesome comic. No doubt about it. It is an awesome comic, and it is also a triple key. And that's part of really what makes it awesome. This is the first appearance of Cyborg, the first appearance of Raven, and also the first appearance of Starfire, two relatively popular characters, at least in the modern day, because of the Teen Titans show. Not only that, but this book also has some firepower in terms of the creators behind it. We have Jim Starlin and George Perez, just to name two that are doing the artwork. We also have Jim Starlin and Marv Wolfman that are doing the script for this book that was dropped in 1980. And check out their artist or their editor, another legend down there on the end. But some firepower behind this book. So let's go ahead and take a look at the data for this one. There are 4,586 universal copies of this book out there overall across all labels, including Signature, Restore, Qualify, and Conserved, 5398. So a relatively low census count for a book from the 1980s, a total of less than 6,000 copies out there. Had somebody watch a video before and say that that's a high number. It's actually not a high number at all. It is a relatively low number. There's wow, there's two 9.9s out there. That is crazy. When you look at the census here, at the 9.8, there are 563, but this book has an FMV of $1,400. The person that asked me to do this analysis indicated that the 9.6 is not what they're targeting, and I don't blame them for that. They were looking specifically at the 9.6, so we're going to hone in on that. There are 830 copies of this book on the census, a total of 427 sales, and the FMV for this book is $450. The fair market value, according to Go Collect, $450. But let's go ahead and zoom in and take a closer look at this data. I mean, what is that? 30%? Yeah, 30% of the copies out there, blue label, are a 9.6. So again, a relatively small number of the overall books that are out there. So let's go ahead and look at how this book is performed. The 1-year average for this book, $462, the 90-day $421, and the 30-day $425. So a little bit of an uptick as of October, at least early October. This book ticked up just a little bit. It was trending down. Well, it's up and down. 480 in September, 415 in September, 425 September, end of September, 356, and then 425. It's honestly been holding a little steady, relatively steady, and you can see that play out here when you look at the graph of how this book is performing. So this 9.6 does not look terrible. You can get into a really awesome triple key with some firepower behind it for less than $500. That is not terrible. In any way, shape, or form. Let's take a look at the second book. And hopefully you can tell I am a fan of this book. I am a fan of this book. This next book it's an interesting one. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. This one is Action Comics issue number 521. Now, some folks out there may be wondering, why are we even looking at Action Comics 521? The reason being, I do believe that this is the first appearance of a character. It is the first appearance of Vixen, and Vixen is the first Black female member of the Justice League of America. Key Collector app to the rescue again. If you haven't accessed that, I definitely encourage you to download it. That is why I think this person is looking at this book. So we have two first appearances of some Black characters, which is great. Cyborg, and in the case of DC Comics Presents, and now Vixen in the case of Action Comics issue number 521. So let's go ahead and take a look at this book. When we look at it, there's some creators here. Most notably is the scriptwriter Jerry Conway, right? The creator behind the Punisher. His name readily jumps out at me. We have the same editor in Julius down there on the end, but maybe not as much firepower as what we saw with DC Comics Presents. This book was released a year after 1981. Now, this book does, I do believe, have Vixen on the cover, which also always is a good thing. And I do not think that that is the case for DC Comics Presents. I do not think that those characters appear on the front cover. A book is always better if the first appearance is in the book and also on the cover. If you get that, then that's a real win. But again, DC Comics Presents has 3 first appearances, 3 shots on goal, which is always a good thing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the data around this book. That is a tiny number of copies. That is a tiny number. 343 universal copies of this comic out there, a grand total of 362 across all labels. That's 18 signature series, 1 qualify. That is not a whole lot of copies in any way, shape, or form, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? Super low number makes it difficult to find it, might also push up the value because it is a limited book. If it gets hot, if it is a book that people want, a small number absolutely drives that up. Supply and demand increases prices. With this book, we see just 35 of them at a 9.8, which has an FMV of $425. That tells you a little something. The 9.6, 80 copies, the fair market value for this one at the 9.6 is $260. The fact that the price is as low as it is speaks, I think, to the obscurity of this specific book and also this character, which may be a good thing or a bad thing. With this book, we're going to go ahead and compare it to maybe the 9.8, just because at least the FMV appears to be comparable to DC Comics Presents issue number 26. So let's drill into this one and let's see how this all plays out. This is 10% of these are a 9.8. You can see again, FMV 425. And then when we look at this thing, what we see is that the values are a little different here. They don't quite match up. And there's reasons for that. The most recent sale for this book was in June of this year, and it was a best offer. It was presented for $625, but sold for $570. The sale before that was at the end of 2022. So again, not a whole lot of copies out there, and I don't even know if this book actually sold. I was not able to find that in Terapeak. I may need to take another look, but not a whole lot of sales happening for this book in recent times. So we have 12 2022, we have 7 2022, we have March of 2022. Not a ton of data to be able to actually draw from. Again, the most recent price was almost, was it 4 months ago or so, $570. The market has changed. The economy is different. We can assume that the value of this book may be a little bit lower, maybe closer to that fair market value of $425. Now, here's the thing. When you start to compare these books, it is difficult because it's not an apple to an apple comparison. Again, when I look at DC Comics Presents, I see a lot of good things going for that book, right? There are 3 characters, 3 first appearances there, but those characters may have already run their course. And I say that because the movies and the TV shows have already come out. They've already come out. They've already been canceled. The movie that they were potentially going to be making, which could pull them back in, has also, I think, been canceled. And that was Nightwing. They canceled, I do believe, that movie. So there's a chance that we may not see any real magic happening with the DC Comics Presents, just because these characters may have already run their course and it may be some time before we see them again. The good thing here is that the value of this book has come down and it remains relatively flat versus where it was in the last few years. It's very similar to where it was at the midpoint of 2021, which is not a bad thing. Now, if one of these characters gets hot, you could see the value of this book pop up a little bit more. Now, when you look at Action Comics issue number 521, that is a more obscure book. It's a more obscure book. It's a more obscure character. And I don't know if that book would be impacted by FOMO. I don't know if you're going to see Vixen suddenly become hot. And so in my mind, the low census count, the fact that this book may not be impacted by any type of FOMO means that you could have some time to get that book. You can take time to find the right price for that comic. Whereas maybe with the DC Comics Presents, you have an easier opportunity to find that book. Because there are many of them out there, you may be able to negotiate that price a little bit more so than the person that truly knows about Action Comics issue number 521 and is not willing to let that book go because they know that it is the first appearance of this Black female character, which might be the whole reason why they actually pick the book up in the first place. When you look at the data for this book, you look at the 9.6, this book almost becomes pretty inexpensive when you start to look at the 9.6. There's 80 of them out there out of 343. Look at the price. The price drops. Just 2 months ago, the price of this book was $135 at a 9.6, which is crazy. You could potentially go after DC Comics Presents, get a really nice 9.6 copy of that, spend $450 or whatever it happens to be, and then save a couple of bucks and go buy this book for 130 some odd dollars, right? FMV for this book is $260, but the average, the 1 year, 178, the 90-day, 154, the last sale was 132. That bad boy is trending down. You could snatch that book up for $100. That's what, in my mind, makes this really easy. Get both of them. You can get both of them for a couple of bucks. Prioritize getting the DC Comics Presents issue number 26 at a high grade. Get a high grade, treat yourself, and then get a high grade of this book at a 9.6 for just a couple of bucks out of your pocket. Now you have two awesome comics in your collection featuring the first appearance of two Black characters. Just do it potentially before or after February. You don't want to run into February because there could be a little bit more attention cast on those two characters in the month of February for obvious reasons. So again, an easy decision for me. Get DC Comics Presents. If you're feeling frisky, get Action Comics issue number 521. So that's my breakdown. If you have a couple of books that you want me to help you to analyze and break down, be certain to leave those thoughts, those suggestions down in the comment section, and maybe we will take a look at your book or your books in a future video. If you enjoyed this, give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that as well. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo, should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan. Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combination.